thank you for joining us. Our presentation is on therapy dogs in the classroom. My name is Jeannie Hanson. I'm the art teacher in Eaton Rapids Public. I'm in two different elementary buildings, Lockwood and Greyhound Central. I'm joining Mr. Zeller, my principal, and Brenda Heemstra, who is our counselor, and the wonderful Faith Ames is videoing us. Thank you so much, Faith. I want to go over all the different aspects of the benefits of therapy dogs in your school if you're ever considering this. I'd like to introduce you to Brenda Heemstra, our school counselor, and she has a great background in the trauma in children and the need for therapy dogs.
Hello, my name is Brenda Heemstra, and I'm the counselor at Lockwood Elementary in Eaton Rapids. Today we're here to talk to you about therapy dogs in our schools, and we are lucky enough to have Jazz as our therapy dog. She also is kind of our school mascot. She's kind of our school pet, but we get to use her in a lot of different ways. She is able to be written into our behavior plans. She's written into a lot of classroom plans for kids with behavior issues, for kids with trauma, and that's kind of where I come into play. Jazz is a special tool that we're able to use with kids that have backgrounds in trauma, and we're getting more and more kids into our schools with these backgrounds and issues that sometimes we know a lot about and sometimes we don't. Jazz is the one that comes in when there's a kid that's maybe tearing apart a classroom and we need to get him out of there or her out of there and say, you know, let's go down and pet Jazz and calm down a little bit. That child will come in and it's like almost an instant match. Jazz will go up to that child and put her head on their lap and just calm right down, and just it's just instant. You can tell it's just really calming. Jazz is able to, you know, walk up to a child that may be really anxious and really scared, and you can tell there's just a calming piece to both of them. We're really lucky that Jazz is able, it's just something that she had without formal training. Jazz, she's just amazing that way. We also have the ability to use her when we have reward systems. We have these Jazz passes in our building. So if kids are, you know, on a behavior plan that they need to be able to go down and have a 10-minute break, they can earn these, and they may go in and play with her or get a pass where they can go out with an adult and play out in the center court and play ball. She also gets playground breaks where she goes out on lunch breaks and plays with the kids out on the playground. Jazz visits our classrooms. She loves to go in on parties with Mr. Zeller and walk around and visit the kids on their special parties. So we have also a couple mentors that have brought in their therapy dogs. So my mentors may be mentoring a couple kids, so they bring in their own special dogs from home, which is kind of exciting. And that also calms down some of my kids that are on behavior plans. We also have a couple kids that have had some anxiety about reading in front of classrooms. So if we need them to get in some of their reading incentive points, they may bring a book in and say, can I read to Jazz? And that counts too. And that builds up their self-confidence, their self-esteem, decreases some of their anxiety. So in many ways, Jazz has not only become part of our family, but she has really helped so many kids get over some of the hurdles and some of the anxiety that otherwise we can't just give, you know, some pep talks to them and give them a piece of paper to color or some cubes to stack. Jazz has provided more than I can just say, hey, you know, let's work through this. I always say she's a better tool or teacher than I could be through. So therapy dogs provide a lot more than what I could as a teacher or as anyone could in their box of tools, as I like to say.
Yes. Brenda's talked about the need for, the cause for, and the case for using these dogs in schools. We are all pretty aware that trauma in students is a huge factor. It's not going away anytime soon that I can see, and these dogs are a great help. I also want to talk about building a sense of community in their classroom and a sense of empathy. things take time, but there are also two benefits of having therapy dogs in your school. Empathy, it takes time, repeat visits, a lot of exposure. My dog Shelby here, she comes and goes with me because my days are pretty long. So, and with traveling and going from building to building, I bring her on occasion. Mr. Zeller's dog Jazz is a constant presence, and the kids have really benefited from Jazz. There are also incentives for academic success. So some of the health benefits connect right with the academic success. When you think about being stressed and trying to learn in that kind of stressed state of mind, it's nearly impossible for most of us, especially for children, I would say. And a therapy dog can have the benefit of lowering blood pressure and boosting serotonin, also boosting your levels of oxytocin, so that creates a sense of calm and a more inviting scenario for learning. Stimulating memory is another benefit that the therapy dogs can bring. Side benefits are also that the staff enjoys getting a little time out, and Shelby's had visitors come from time to time. So it's students and staff. It's a whole kind of learning environment that the dogs bring in that are very beneficial and very positive. There are also literacy connections that I've noticed. Some people will take dogs into reading programs and have them sit while a student who might be a shy or hesitant reader reads to the dog. And that is a wonderful kind of situation because the dog, of course, is the best listener ever, non-judgmental, and boosts their confidence and their sense of calm. So literacy connections are also really important. Now I'd like to introduce you to my principal, Mr. Jason Zeller, and he is the owner of Jazz.
Hi, my name is Jason Zeller, and I am the principal of Lockwood Elementary, and I would like to introduce you to Jazz. Jazz is a golden retriever and a yellow lab mix and has been with the Lockwood family for the last 6 years. The year before Jazz came to Lockwood, I was a social studies teacher over at the middle school, and after the start of the year, I was asked to come over and be the principal at Lockwood. So this was my first full year over there, and I just really wanted to change the culture of the building and make it a little bit more energetic and kid-friendly. Jazz was originally donated to the special ed department to work with kids from a local trainer who has students that go to Eaton Rapids and just wanted to give back. She became available because the special ed director was not able to get her into the classrooms to work with kids as much as they had hoped. So I volunteered to take her over to Lockwood, and she has been there for the last 6 years.
One thing I really want to talk about with my portion of this presentation is what is a therapy dog and how do you qualify a dog for this. Mr. Zeller has talked about Jazz. Jazz's background was police work and drug work, and so Jazz already had basic obedience and of course the good kind of temperament that makes a wonderful therapy dog. So Jazz didn't go to and through a therapy dog program per se, but her background in that other work qualified her pretty well, we all feel. Shelby, however, came to me as a retired show dog. She was in the show ring, and so much so that she earned her AKC championship titles. So she was used to a lot of hubbub, a lot of commotion, hands on her. The judges touch the dog and they feel and they look at their teeth and look at their ears, and that's perfect kind of tolerance level for a therapy dog to also have. So I looked at her when I got her, and I thought she would be good at this. The most important quality of a therapy dog is their temperament, their disposition. You cannot replace that. That has to be something that is innate. You can work with any dog to bring about better results, but in my opinion, a therapy dog has to have the kind of personality that's built for this task. She started this as an older dog. If somebody wants to bring their dog in as a therapy dog, they should be at least 1 year of age to start. And there's a program of training. There's different organizations that can sponsor you. You can join. And they do not have to be purebred, AKC registered dog. They can be any breed, any size, as long as they have that great personality and they're able to do the training, they can do it. So therapy dog training is much different. I want to differentiate between therapy dogs and service dogs, because you'll see both wearing vests, you'll see ID tags. A service dog, some people may not realize, is a dog that is there for a very specific task. And usually that task involves helping a person perform a task that they otherwise cannot perform without the aid of the dog. So it might be hearing impairment, visual impairment, it might be seizure disorder, but the training for a service dog is extremely intense, very involved, high level, and hands off when they're working. So when you see a service dog, you'll notice that people do not just go up and pat the dog. They're on the job and they're doing what they're supposed to do without getting any kind of confusing messages. A therapy dog, however, is meant to be touched. They're meant to be patted and held and sometimes hugged. That's the whole thing, is, reaching down, stroking the coat, and having them, look at you. And I have lots of children that give Shelby hugs. So both those types of dogs need a good disposition and training. Therapy dogs' level of training, I would say, is not as specific and probably not as intense as a service dog. So that's the difference between the two. Also that therapy dogs can be denied access to different places. Service dogs cannot be denied access under the ADA. The Americans for Disability Act would not allow anybody to say that a service dog cannot enter a restaurant, airport, whatever. Therapy dogs, however, it's up to the person, it's up to the establishment. They're not allowed just anywhere. Okay, so certification training. I took Shelby to some obedience classes. Actually, I worked with her a little bit at home, and I have a background in training some dogs. I used to show dogs myself. So I trained her at home, and then I took her to a couple of classes where she could get certified or begin the process of certification. So she got what's called her Canine Good Citizen certificate, and these are the commands that she had to know. She had to know to heel at my side, walk along, to sit on command, lay down, stay, come to me on recall, and also, in addition to all of that, they're looking for a level of steadiness for the dog, so they would do things like go by with a wheelchair, somebody in a wheelchair, or somebody with a walker, or they would drop loud pots and pans and make loud noises and check to see if the dog is going to flinch or not. So they're looking for that calmness and that steadiness. Also, for her Canine Good Citizen, I had to hand the leash off to another adult, pretend that I needed to leave for whatever reason, restroom or whatever, and hide out of her sight for quite a few minutes and not have her freak out. So they look for that. That's a little extra. So you don't have to get the Canine Good Citizen certification. I just figured I might as well while I was at it. I figured she was probably up to the task, and she was. After that, you join forces with a group, and you are shadowed by a person who rates your dog and checks, and they keep documentation. They must be up on all their health certificate, have to have all that paperwork with you, and they must be clean and well behaved, and go through several different sessions before you actually are legit. So she actually has her tags on her. Our organization that we're with is Love on a Leash, and there's several. There's Therapy Dogs International, there's all kinds of groups. So our building is unique that Jazz is there all the time. Shelby comes once in a while, and Shelby has gone through all this specific therapy dog training. Jazz has her background that qualified her, in the district's opinion, to be a good therapy dog, and she's there all the time in Mr. Zeller's office. So, obligations. You have to keep the dog up to date on everything. Clean. You, as the handler, must be the one that hangs on to the dog, handles the dog. You can't just pass it off to a whole bunch of people unless there's some sort of emergency. And for her, her hardest thing, the two hardest things for Shelby was to sit on command, because she was not supposed to do that as a show dog in the show ring, and to not kiss. She's very loving, and sometimes I have to tell the kids, don't get too close because she's trustworthy, but she'll want to lick you, and we cannot do that. Also, there's no barking, so she had to pass that test. She came real close to failing that one time when somebody knocked on the door in a memory care unit, and she wanted to bark really badly, but she didn't. Another thing that's really important to train your dog, if you're going to do this, is to leave it. Leave it is a very good command, because if you're visiting somebody in a nursing home or where there's any medications, if something spills on the ground, you would not want that dog to go ahead and think that was a treat. So leave it is a very important command. Some of the places I've taken her have included memory care units, nursing homes, a hospice situation, libraries, but school has been where she's been the most wonderful presence, in my opinion, because she's so good with kids. So if you're wanting to do this, make sure that the dogs not only are obedient, but that they have this innate love for children.
It is Friday. It's time for Schools Rule. And today, local students are getting some jazz time.
Not the music, but a very special dog. I take you to Eaton Rapids to find out how a therapy dog is making their school day a little easier. Students at Lockwood Elementary School in Eaton Rapids are getting some jazz time.
Coming into a school and having a dog waiting for you is pretty awesome.
Jazz is a trained therapy dog. She helps students of all abilities get some time to reset, recharge, and get a fresh start to the day.
It's their first school experience usually, so they come in with a lot of anxiety.
For some students like Blake, Jazz is a calming force in a time of uncertainty and stress.
He started seeing her towards the beginning of the year for behavioral issues, and actually the end of February our middle daughter was diagnosed with leukemia. We've been trying to keep life as normal as possible for our older daughter and for him, and Jazz has been that normal.
Jazz now spends her days with kids and lives with the school's principal, but she started her career as a narcotics dog.
Jazz's temperament is that of a really friendly, outgoing, well-socialized dog.
Mike Morgan donated Jazz to Lockwood, and veterinarian Bethany Steele volunteers to keep her in top shape with regular checkups, teeth cleanings, and vaccines.
She kind of knows what they need and when they need it to comfort them.
For us, it's definitely one less thing that we have to worry about. You know, we know that he has the extra help, and you know, if he needs to relieve some stress, then just get a hug. She's there, and yeah, it definitely made a difference.
Doesn't she just put a smile on your face? For additional resources on therapy dogs and Lockwood Elementary School, head to our website, WILX.com, and click on this story. Cute kids, a cute dog.
Yeah,
Who can beat that? You just can't compete with that.
Absolutely.
It's adorable.
We have some things to think about as we move along with therapy dogs. I enjoy taking her places. I've witnessed myself the magic that happens. And now in the time of COVID-19, a lot remains to be seen, but some of the things I have witnessed, one student who was very, very upset, I was setting up my classroom and could hear them through my door actually shut, just really melting down, having a very difficult time. As educators, we know when kids reach that point where they seem to be beyond, being able to pull them back. Breathing wasn't working, so I thought, okay, let's go out and see what we can do. So I brought her out. The student immediately reacted in a positive way. I brought her forward when she looked like she was ready to walk forward, and the student looked receptive. And I asked the student to, try a breath or two, and if they would like to, just give her a pat on the head. I would say it was maybe 2 seconds max before that student calmed immediately down. It was almost like magic. These are the moments that make it all worth it, all the training. I am also careful to tell students that although they want to crowd around her, to give her a little space. She would tolerate it, but it's just best to have some space and give the dog respite. Having a crate or some place where the dog can relax is important too. So she has her own bed. She has water and treats. she's pretty much set up. You do also have to think about kids with allergies. How severe are they? How many kids do you have with allergies? So it could be that you're using the dog by appointment only if you have a high allergy rate in your school, or maybe they could just have a little time out. Some kids are naturally afraid of dogs and they just can't get past it. So those are all things to consider if you're going to have a therapy dog in your school. There's ways to get started with this. So one of the ways is to build a case for this, do some documentation, both emotional needs and academic needs. Also consider those backup plans, where would the dog just kind of chill out for a while, and would they be fine, with kids that have allergies or not, so you have to look at that. She's gonna look at me now. And also, you have to think about, do you want your own dog that belongs to the school or belongs to staff, or do you want a volunteer to come in? Because you certainly could do that. That might be a great way to get started, is to go on a volunteer basis and have somebody come and see how the kids respond and maybe get that going. When you do that, when you have somebody coming in volunteering, most of these therapy dog groups have insurance plans. So that's another benefit of having a volunteer-only basis if you're starting to investigate this, see if it's the way to go. There's a great sense of collective ownership and school pride. It's kind of funny how our mascot is Eaton Rapids Greyhounds. It's always been a canine-friendly, canine kind of motif going on with the district. And I just knew that, she would be a good fit. I think that most dogs that go through this program or had some sort of training just are so wonderful. Shelby does what I call her magical stare. She has this ability to look into a person's eyes and almost mesmerize them to calm them down. So I've heard some of my MSU visitations, some of the older students have said things like, I feel she can look through my soul. She's reading my mind in a great way. I want to shed tears, kind of cleanse yourself of, any of the sadness you might have or stress before finals. Somebody else just said, she's just so chill. So you can hear people and you can see the response, and it's just such a great benefit. Again, I don't know what the future holds presently for COVID-19 and therapy dogs. We all chose to back off when it first started, so now that things are starting to open up a little bit, we'll probably get some feedback on how to proceed. So, it's not like my dog's going to sneeze on you and spread the virus, but people have talked about patting and then somebody else touching, and now people are saying, maybe touching isn't as severe as we thought, surfaces, so everything is changing and evolving. I'm not a medical expert, so I'm just going on the best advice of the medical community and my organization. But I really think that when this is over, when we get a grip on this virus, that a lot of people are going to need this. I can see medical staff needing therapy dogs. So I don't see them going away anytime soon with their role in schools and with educators and with helping kids build a sense of community, empathy, academic benefits, all the other things that just make a great learning environment. So if you think therapy dogs are for you, look into a few different programs. If you think your dog qualifies, have them tested and see if they make the cut. I always say that these guys are like a magic tonic with a tail wag, and they feel that they have this sense of duty and obligation with ease, and they have this innate sense of being able to understand their role, helping children feel better about themselves, their school learning environment, and their day. So I thank you very much for joining us, and Shelby thanks you too. So she's turned around now, but we'll see if I can get her up. Let me just have her get up a little bit here. Shelby, come here. There she is. Have her give you the look. Come on. Sit was always a hard command for her because of her show dog experience. There you go. Are you a good girl? Can you give me 5 or shake a paw? There's a shake a paw. All right. Thanks again, everybody. It's been a pleasure.
The crew and I took a trip to Lockwood Elementary School to visit their most cherished staff member, Jazz. This is Jazz, a lab golden retriever mix, a 3-year-old female who has a full-time job here at Lockwood Elementary School.
Jazz was originally donated to the district for the special ed department to work with kids, but they weren't able to get around enough kids. So we brought her here, and she spends her day just working with the kids. We have a number of students that come see her that are just having rough days. They spend 10 minutes with Jazz, and she gets her through the rest of the day. She's also trained in drugs and narcotics, so she and I did that this past year, so that's what she does.
How do you like having Jazz around the school?
Because she's a good dog and she's fuzzy. She's a good dog.
Yeah, she's a good dog. How do you guys like having Jazz in the classroom?
Good. Like it.
Can you tell me why?
Because we get to pet her all the time. She's fluffy.
What is your favorite thing to do with Jazz?
Play throw tennis balls. We have this green thing and we throw it and she goes to chase it. And when she jumps, it's really funny. I like to throw the ball and she goes and gets it and then we do it.
Well, we use Jazz for a couple of things. We use her to help kids when they're a little bit agitated, help calm them down just a little bit. They love her. All the kids in the building seem to love Jazz. So whenever they're having a hard time or whenever they're really irritated or upset, just sitting down, and sometimes just sitting down to pet her, calms them down a lot.
She is well loved by the community and especially by the Lockwood family. This has been Bailey Bancroft with Studio 143 News.